We are delighted this evening to welcome Meg Adler as our guest darshan, our spiritual preacher. Meg is a good friend, a Svaranik, a Camp Tawanga and urban Adamanik, and an amazing queer leader and amazing illustrator. Meg has an MA in religion from the Yale Divinity School and a really amazing project called Letters Aligned. We're going to put all this information in the chat so you can check out Meg's work, maybe take a class with Meg. But for now, it's our pleasure, Meg, to welcome you. Thank you so much for being here, and Shabbat Shalom to you.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. In a moment, I'm going to share a Devar Torah based off of this zine. So if you've never heard of a zine before, it's kind of like a handmade booklet. And everyone is going to have a chance to download this. And this is what my Devar Torah is based off of. But here's the cool part. It's just like this. You print it out, and we're going to get you all set up after this if you would like to download one for yourself. This zine is one I wrote a couple weeks ago, and it's called A Brief History of Stonewall. And I'd like to now share my Devar Torah based on this art. So Shabbat Shalom, everyone. When I was 15, I sat bolt upright in bed one night in the middle of the night because a question popped into my head just suddenly. What if I'm gay? I told myself, but you're not, you're not, you're not, you're not. Just go over and over and over again until I fell back asleep. When I was 20, I fell in love with one of my teammates on my Frisbee team, pretty classic, and considered quitting because I couldn't stand the fact that I was deceiving her, because every time we high-fived, it meant more to me than it did to her. When I was 21, I wrote a poem about being confused about my sexual orientation and shared it at the UCLA Slam Poetry Competition, and as such came out to my school, my parents, and myself. When I was 24, I met my now wife working at Camp Tawanga. At 26, we got married, and now I am 29 years old, and this is my first Pride, the first Pride I've ever celebrated. Pride always felt vacant to me. I don't like day drinking, large crowds, limited access to toilets. I hate making plans with too many people who constantly say, wait, what are we doing? So naturally, I always sat out. One time I also sat in on a panel at Jar Zahav with intergenerational queer voices, and I heard a 16-year-old lesbian say that she felt Pride was more for the straight kids than for her, and I felt it wasn't for me either. This year, however, it was just the perfect storm to ask the question, what is Pride actually about? So I did what I do best. I studied. I read articles, essays, timelines. I watched documentaries. I listened to interviews and podcasts and more. I had taken queer theory in undergrad, and I could talk all about abstractions of gender and sexual identity and all of that, but I never knew what was Pride. Turns out it's a lot more than rainbow bathing suits, as fun as those are. In a way, it is like so many Jewish holidays. Here's a recipe. 3 parts discrete population, add that to 2 parts oppression, 4 parts celebration, throw in disagreeing about how it all really happened, shake it up a little, and boom, a quintessential Jewish holiday, right? So allow me to tell you the Megillah, AKA zine, as I learned it. Once upon a time, as all stories start. In the United States, it was illegal to be queer. It was illegal to wear clothes intended for the opposite sex. And if you did, depending on where you lived, you would be fined or jailed. So queer folks could gather only in certain places, and many of those places were bars. Generally, they started as gay men's bars and only later allowed others in. And one of those bars was the Stonewall Inn in New York City. I'll mention now that gay liberation didn't start at Stonewall. But for the sake of understanding Pride as a day and a month, this is where the story begins. The Stonewall Inn was run by the mafia, who would overcharge gay patrons for watered down drinks. They would blackmail wealthier patrons threatening to out them to their communities, which could result in them losing jobs, families, dignity, liberty in exchange for money. The mafia would pay off cops to leave the patrons alone, but the cops would still raid the bars from time to time. One time was June 28th, 1969. For some reason, on this night, the raid didn't go as it had before, but was resisted. We don't know who threw the first brick or shoe or whatever. We do know that Stormy DeLarvery, Marsha P. Johnson, and Sylvia Rivera were there. In particular, Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, Black and Latinx drag queens, respectively, were two people who didn't just have nothing to lose, but they had everything to give. They fought back not just on the 28th, but every night until July 1st when the riots ended, and then well after, for years, creating safe spaces for trans femmes and queens who called themselves the street people. They're heroes in the truest sense of the word, but like many heroes, frustratingly in their time and for decades to come, they were not treated as heroes. After July 1st, 1969, the riots stopped, and this became known as the Stonewall riots. For years to come, the celebration of the protest of gay liberation and queer humanity more generally. And that's what we celebrate today. When I'm not busy researching queer history, I'm a Jewish educator and artist. I primarily teach 6th and 7th graders who are about to become bar mitzvah. Our pedagogy is based around the following. First, you have to learn the tradition and history and what it says. You have to learn how others have critiqued it, changed it. Then you're responsible for interpreting it yourself. Study so you can make informed decisions about how you participate. Today, I feel like a bar mitzvah student entering the queer community as an adult. I feel I have studied my history and I'm interpreting it for you all. I am no longer passively declining my invitation to Pride. I'm writing it for myself, like a Purim spiel. While I once thought Pride was superficial, I now know I just hadn't found my drash yet. And believe me, I can critique the commodification of LGBTQ liberation all day. That would be a whole nother drash or a book or a podcast series or whatever we want it to be. But I'm not going to do that today. I'd rather not, because today I feel like it's my gay mitzvah, and I'd like to offer my vision, a blessing, a poem for prides to come. May Pride amplify stories of Black, Indigenous, people of color who are trans and queer and their communities. May it celebrate the victories of hard-fought histories while recommitting to healing places of pain and death that remain. Next year, may all be free. Next year, may all be free. May Pride mean gratitude for queer pioneers and awe for youth, wise beyond their years, who teach us to love more deeply than this world has ever seen. May this be God's will, l'chaim, and Shabbat Shalom.
Yasher koach. Thank you so much. Gorgeous. Happy gay mitzvah.
Thank you. Thank you.